"It was a long time coming," is used to describe something that has been anticipated or expected for a long time, often suggesting relief or satisfaction when it finally happens. Monologue 1. It was a long time coming, but after years of hard work and dedication, I finally walked across the stage to receive my degree. The pride and joy in that moment made every struggle worthwhile. And as I held that diploma, I knew I had achieved something truly meaningful. Monologue 2. It was a long time coming, but after countless setbacks and sleepless nights, we finally launched our small business. Seeing the open sign in the window was more than just a milestone. It was a dream realized, built on persistence and a belief that this day would eventually come. Monologue 3. It was a long time coming, but after years of missed opportunities and near misses, we finally booked that dream vacation. Standing on the beach, watching the sunset, I couldn't help but feel that all the waiting and planning made this moment even more special. It was a moment of clarity. Refers to an instance when someone suddenly understands a situation, gains insight, or realizes something important that changes their perspective. Monologue 1. It was a moment of clarity when I realized that I had been holding on to a dream that no longer served me. Letting go wasn't easy, but in that instant, I understood that moving forward meant embracing new opportunities instead of clinging to the past. Monologue 2. It was a moment of clarity when I saw the path I needed to take. I had been confused for so long, weighing every option and second-guessing every decision, but suddenly the right choice became crystal clear and I knew exactly what I had to do. Monologue 3. It was a moment of clarity when I finally understood that forgiveness wasn't for the other person, it was for me. In that moment, the anger I had been holding on to melted away, replaced by a peace I hadn't felt in a long time. It was beyond words, is used to describe an experience or emotion so powerful or profound that it cannot be adequately expressed through language.
Monologue 1. It was beyond words when I stood at the edge of the Grand Canyon for the first time. The vastness, the colors, and the sheer beauty of it all left me speechless, reminding me how small we are in comparison to the world's wonders. Monologue 2. It was beyond words when I held my newborn niece in my arms. The purity and innocence in her tiny face stirred emotions I didn't even know I had, and no matter how much I tried, I couldn't find the right words to describe the love I felt in that moment. Monologue 3. It was beyond words when our team finally won the championship after years of falling short. The roar of the crowd, the hugs from teammates, and the overwhelming sense of accomplishment blended into a joy so deep that no words could capture how it felt. Little did I know, is used to express that, at the time, the speaker was unaware of important information or future events that would later become significant. Monologue 1. Little did I know that the stranger I bumped into at the bookstore would become my closest friend. A casual conversation about our favorite authors turned into years of shared memories, proving that sometimes the most meaningful connections start unexpectedly. Monologue 2. Little did I know that choosing to take a different route home that day would change my life. I stumbled upon a cozy little cafe tucked away on a quiet street, and it quickly became my go-to spot for peaceful afternoons and creative inspiration. Monologue 3. Little did I know that saying yes to that one invitation would lead to an incredible adventure. What started as a spontaneous weekend trip turned into one of the most unforgettable experiences, full of laughter, new friendships, and memories I'll cherish forever. It all came together when is used to describe a moment when various elements or efforts finally aligned, resulting in a successful or meaningful outcome. Monologue 1. It all came together when we finally completed our community garden. After months of planning, planting, and overcoming obstacles, seeing the garden flourish with vibrant flowers and fresh vegetables was incredibly satisfying. All the hard work and dedication paid off in a way that exceeded our expectations. Monologue 2. It all came together when our team presented the project to the board. After weeks of late nights and countless revisions, the final presentation was seamless, and the board's enthusiastic approval was the culmination of all our efforts and collaboration.
Definition. There was a sense of is used to describe a particular feeling or atmosphere that was perceptible during a specific moment or situation. Monologue 1. There was a sense of peace as I watched the sun set over the ocean. The rhythmic sound of the waves and the soft hues of the sky created an atmosphere of tranquility, making me feel completely at ease and connected with nature. Monologue 2. There was a sense of excitement in the air during the opening night of the play. The buzz of anticipation among the audience, the vibrant energy of the actors, and the palpable tension before the curtain rose made the entire experience electric. Monologue 3. There was a sense of accomplishment when I completed the marathon. Crossing the finish line, surrounded by cheers and high fives, I felt a deep pride in my achievement and a profound appreciation for the journey it took to get there. From that day forward is used to signify a change or turning point that had a lasting impact on one's life or perspective starting from a specific moment. Monologue 1. From that day forward, everything changed when I moved to the city. The fast pace, the constant buzz, and the endless opportunities transformed my life in ways I never imagined. I found myself embracing new experiences and meeting people from all walks of life. Each day brought a fresh perspective, and I realized that this vibrant city was not just a new home but a catalyst for personal growth and endless possibilities. Monologue 2. From that day forward, when I adopted my rescue dog, my life took on a new meaning. The initial days were challenging as we both adjusted to each other's routines, but soon, the companionship and unconditional love began to fill my days with joy. His playful antics and loyal presence brought a newfound sense of purpose and happiness, turning our home into a place of warmth and love. Monologue 3. From that day forward, after making the decision to pursue my passion for painting full-time, my life was filled with a renewed sense of purpose. The initial uncertainty and fear were replaced with a profound satisfaction as I immersed myself in creativity. Every brushstroke on the canvas became a step toward fulfilling a lifelong dream, and I discovered that dedicating myself to what I love brought an immense sense of fulfillment and joy.
Definition. Everything fell into place means that all elements or aspects of a situation finally aligned and began to work harmoniously, often resulting in a successful or satisfying outcome. Monologue 1. Everything fell into place when I finally decided to follow my dream of starting a small business. After months of researching, planning, and struggling with doubts, the pieces began to fit together perfectly. From finding the right location to assembling a dedicated team, every step seemed to align effortlessly, leading to the successful launch of a venture I had always envisioned. Monologue 2. Everything fell into place after I took a leap of faith and moved to a new city for a job opportunity. The initial uncertainty and challenges of relocation soon gave way to a series of serendipitous events. Meeting new friends, discovering favorite spots, and finding a supportive community all seemed to come together in a way that made the transition feel smooth and rewarding. Monologue 3. Everything fell into place when I decided to revisit my old hobby of writing. After years of neglecting my passion, returning to it felt like a natural fit. The ideas flowed effortlessly, and I found a renewed sense of purpose and creativity. What once seemed like a distant dream became a fulfilling reality as I completed my first novel, marking a significant milestone in my writing journey. It was as if a door opened, suggests that a new opportunity or possibility became available, leading to a significant change or improvement in one's situation. Monologue 1. It was as if a door opened when I received the scholarship offer to study abroad. What had once seemed like a distant dream suddenly became a tangible reality. The prospect of exploring new cultures and pursuing advanced studies filled me with excitement and gratitude. This unexpected opportunity felt like a gateway to a whole new world of possibilities. Monologue 2. It was as if a door opened when I finally took the risk to share my music with a wider audience. The positive feedback and encouragement from listeners not only validated my efforts, but also introduced me to a network of supportive peers and mentors. This new chapter in my musical journey brought fresh inspiration and opportunities that I hadn't anticipated.
Definition. It dawned on me that is used to describe a gradual realization or understanding of something that wasn't clear at first but becomes evident over time. Monologue 1. It dawned on me that I had been chasing the wrong goals all along. For years, I had been pursuing success defined by others, titles, salaries, and recognition, without questioning what truly mattered to me. The realization was subtle at first, but as I reflected on what genuinely brought me joy, I knew it was time to realign my priorities and focus on what made me feel fulfilled from within. Monologue 2. It dawned on me that small moments of kindness could have a profound impact on someone's day. I used to overlook the significance of simple gestures, like holding a door open or offering a kind word, until I experienced firsthand how those tiny acts could lift my spirits. From then on, I made a conscious effort to spread positivity in little ways, knowing that even small actions could create ripples of goodwill. Monologue 3. It dawned on me that the most meaningful relationships are built on shared experiences, not just shared interests. I used to believe that friendships were solely about liking the same things, but over time, I realized that the strongest bonds grew from moments of vulnerability, support, and laughter during life's highs and lows. This understanding deepened my appreciation for the people who stood by me, no matter the circumstances. The pieces started coming together suggests that a situation or problem that was once confusing or fragmented began to make sense as various elements fell into place. Monologue 1. The pieces started coming together when I committed to a regular routine of exercise and healthy eating. At first, it felt like small, unrelated steps, an early morning run here, a salad instead of fast food there, but over time, the changes added up. I noticed I had more energy, my mood improved, and I felt a sense of control over my life. Suddenly, it all clicked. The habits I'd struggled with for so long were transforming my well-being in ways I hadn't fully grasped before.
Monologue 2. The pieces started coming together when we finally connected the dots in our family's history. After years of piecing together old letters, photographs, and stories from relatives, a clearer picture of our heritage emerged. Learning about the challenges and triumphs of those who came before us gave us a newfound appreciation for our roots, and the fragmented stories that once felt disconnected now formed a rich, cohesive narrative that brought us closer as a family. Monologue 3. The pieces started coming together when I embraced the importance of patience in my creative work. I used to get frustrated when ideas didn't flow or projects stalled, but I gradually learned that creativity isn't a linear process. Sometimes, inspiration comes in bursts, and other times, it takes stepping back and letting ideas simmer. When I started allowing myself the space to work at my own pace, I realized that everything I needed was already there, waiting to be assembled in its own time. Definition. A light bulb went off when describes a sudden moment of understanding, insight, or realization, similar to the imagery of a light bulb illuminating an idea. Monologue 1. A light bulb went off when I realized that I was spending more time worrying about what others thought than actually enjoying my life. For so long, I'd been seeking validation from everyone around me. But in that instant, it became clear that true happiness comes from being at peace with myself. From that moment on, I started making decisions based on what genuinely brought me joy, not what I thought would impress others. Monologue 2. A light bulb went off when I finally understood why my attempts at learning a new language weren't sticking. I was focused too much on memorizing grammar rules instead of immersing myself in real-life conversations. The realization shifted how I approached learning. Suddenly, listening to podcasts, chatting with native speakers, and reading simple books became the keys to progress. That simple change made the process feel more natural and rewarding. Monologue 3. A light bulb went off when I recognized that setbacks were part of the growth process, not obstacles to it. I used to see failures as signs that I wasn't good enough, or that I was on the wrong path. But one day, while reflecting on past experiences, I saw how each failure had taught me something essential, pushing me closer to my goals. That moment shifted my mindset and helped me embrace challenges as stepping stones rather than roadblocks. I finally grasped it when is used to describe the moment when someone fully understands or comprehends something that had been elusive or difficult to grasp before. Monologue 1. I finally grasped it when I realized that self-care isn't selfish. For the longest time, I felt guilty about taking time for myself, always putting others first and neglecting my own needs. But one day, after feeling utterly drained, I understood that taking care of myself meant I could show up better for those I care about. It was a turning point in how I balanced my life, and I finally learned that nurturing my well-being wasn't just necessary, it was essential. Monologue 2. I finally grasped it when I understood that setbacks are not failures, but lessons in disguise. I had always been hard on myself when things didn't go as planned, seeing each obstacle as a reflection of my inadequacies. But after reflecting on past challenges, I began to see that every so-called failure had taught me something valuable. That shift in perspective allowed me to approach difficulties with more resilience and patience, knowing that every setback was simply part of the journey. Monologue 3. I finally grasped it when I figured out that true connection comes from being authentic. For years, I tried to fit in by saying what I thought others wanted to hear, but the friendships I formed felt shallow and unsatisfying. It wasn't until I started being honest about my thoughts and feelings that I found people who truly resonated with me. That understanding transformed my relationships and made me realize that genuine bonds are built on authenticity, not pretense. I couldn't ignore it any longer. Is used to describe the point when something that has been avoided, denied, or overlooked can no longer be dismissed or pushed aside. Monologue 1. I couldn't ignore it any longer. The signs that I was in the wrong career had been staring me in the face for years. The constant exhaustion, the lack of motivation, the feeling of dragging myself through each day. It all pointed to a deep unhappiness that I kept pushing aside. For the longest time, I convinced myself that I just needed to try harder, or that this was simply the price of being successful. But one morning, as I stared blankly at yet another email, I realized that no amount of effort could make me love something that drained me so completely. That was the moment I decided it was time to start over, to find a path that aligned with who I truly was, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. Monologue 2. I couldn't ignore it any longer. The distance between us had grown too wide. At first, I told myself it was just a phase, that every relationship goes through rough patches. But the silences became longer, the conversations less meaningful, and the laughter we once shared felt like a distant memory. I kept pretending everything was fine, hoping that things would go back to the way they were. But deep down, I knew that something fundamental had shifted. One evening, as we sat across from each other in near silence, it hit me that holding on to what we used to be was only making things harder. I finally understood that letting go didn't mean we failed. It meant we'd grown in different directions. Monologue 3. I couldn't ignore it any longer. The clutter in my life was weighing me down. For years, I held on to things. Old clothes, forgotten hobbies, relics of... Each time I looked around, I felt overwhelmed, like I was suffocating under the weight of too many belongings and too many memories. I kept telling myself that I might need these things one day, that they held sentimental value, but deep inside, I knew that all they did was anchor me to a version of myself I had outgrown. The day I decided to declutter, it wasn't just about tidying up. It was about making space. Space for new experiences, new ideas, and a life that felt lighter and more aligned with who I am now.
The truth sunk in when is used to describe the moment when someone fully accepts a reality they might have been avoiding, denying, or struggling to face. Monologue 1. The truth sunk in when I found myself standing alone in the empty apartment we once shared. The echoes of laughter, the late-night conversations, and all the little routines that made up our life together had vanished, leaving only silence. For weeks, I convinced myself that we could work things out, that it was just a rough patch, but as I looked around at the bare walls and packed boxes, I finally accepted that it was over. The realization hit hard, not in a sudden rush, but like a slow wave that left me staring at what I had been avoiding for so long. We were done, and there was no going back. It was time to start rebuilding, this time on my own. Monologue 2. The truth sunk in when I saw the look on my friend's face as I let her down for the third time in a row. She didn't have to say anything, the disappointment was written in her eyes. I had been so wrapped up in my own world, chasing deadlines and juggling commitments, that I failed to notice how much I had neglected the people who mattered most. I kept telling myself I was just busy, that they would understand, but in that moment, I realized how many times I'd chosen work over friendships. It wasn't just about this one missed coffee date, it was a pattern. That truth hit me hard, and I knew I couldn't keep making excuses. Something had to change. Monologue 3. The truth sunk in when I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. The energy, the spark, the sense of purpose that once defined me had faded, replaced by exhaustion and a dull sense of going through the motions. For a long time, I brushed it off as just part of getting older, or the stress of daily life, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. I realized that I had been neglecting my health, both physically and mentally, for far too long. The wake-up call wasn't a dramatic event, it was just the quiet, undeniable truth staring back at me in my own reflection. That was the moment I decided to take back control of my life, starting with the small steps I had been avoiding.
It hit me when refers to a moment of sudden realization, understanding, or clarity that strikes with force, often changing how one views a situation. Monologue 1. It hit me when I saw the email with the final rejection. I'd spent months putting my heart and soul into that project, believing it was my big break. Each stage of the process built up my hopes, making me think I was so close to reaching my goal. But reading that last, curt message made it clear, it wasn't going to happen. At first, all I felt was disappointment, but then it hit me, this was just one setback, not the end. Success isn't a straight path, and maybe this was the push I needed to refine my approach and keep going. It was a painful realization, but one that gave me a renewed sense of determination. Monologue 2. It hit me when I walked into the family gathering and felt like a stranger among people I once knew so well. The laughter and conversations flowed easily around me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. I'd been so caught up in my own world, chasing ambitions and moving from one place to another, that I hadn't noticed how distant I'd become from those who used to be my foundation. In that moment, it hit me, while I was focused on building my future, I'd let the connections that mattered slip away. That realization was a bittersweet reminder that sometimes, in our pursuit of bigger dreams, we lose sight of the things that ground us. Monologue 3. It hit me when I was sitting in traffic, stuck in the same routine I'd been living for years. Day in and day out, the same commute, the same job, the same tasks. I had been on autopilot for so long that I didn't even notice how much life had become a series of repetitive motions. But as I sat there, staring at the endless line of cars, it suddenly hit me, I wasn't happy. I was comfortable, sure, but I was also stuck. That realization opened my eyes to the fact that I was living a life of complacency rather than chasing the dreams and passions that once set me on fire. It was the jolt I needed to start making real changes. It became glaringly obvious describes a moment when something becomes so clear and unmistakable that it can no longer be overlooked or ignored. Monologue 1. It became glaringly obvious when I realized that I had been prioritizing everyone else's needs over my own for far too long. I'd convinced myself that being selfless was the right thing to do, that putting others first was what made me a good person. But as I sat alone one evening, drained and exhausted, it hit me how little of myself was left. The constant cycle of giving without replenishing had taken its toll. It was no longer just a subtle feeling of burnout, it was a full-blown depletion. That's when I knew I had to start setting boundaries and valuing my own well-being just as much as I did for others. Monologue 2. It became glaringly obvious when I noticed the growing distance between me and my old friends. The friendly texts became less frequent, the invitations fewer, and when we did catch up, it felt forced, like we were holding on to memories rather than creating new ones. I kept telling myself that life was just busy for all of us, but the truth was clear, we were growing apart. We were evolving into different people with different priorities, and no amount of nostalgia could bridge that gap. It was a painful realization, but it also gave me clarity on which relationships were still worth nurturing and which ones I needed to let go. Monologue 3. It became glaringly obvious when I finally took a hard look at my finances. For months, I had been brushing off the mounting debt and telling myself that everything would work out if I just kept pushing forward. But when I saw the numbers laid out in front of me, it was like a cold splash of reality. My spending habits were out of control, and ignoring the problem wasn't going to make it go away. The weight of financial stress that I had been carrying subtly in the background suddenly became impossible to overlook. That was the wake-up call I needed to change my habits and start taking responsibility for my future. A wave of joy washed over me describes an overwhelming feeling of happiness or contentment that suddenly and powerfully fills a person. Monologue 1. A wave of joy washed over me when I watched my little sister take her first steps. We had all been waiting for that moment, encouraging her day after day, but when it finally happened, it was even more magical than I imagined. Her wobbling steps were full of determination, and the look of pride on her face was contagious. In that instant, everything else melted away, and all I could feel was pure happiness. Seeing her reach that milestone reminded me how beautiful life's small victories can be, and it was a moment I'll treasure forever. Monologue 2. A wave of joy washed over me when I found out I'd been accepted into the program I'd been dreaming of for years. After months of hard work, late-night studying, and constant self-doubt, reading that acceptance letter felt like a reward for all the effort I'd poured in. It wasn't just about getting in, it was about proving to myself that I could reach this goal. In that moment, everything I'd been working toward crystallized into one powerful feeling of fulfillment. The happiness wasn't just in the achievement itself, but in knowing that persistence and belief in myself had paid off. Monologue 3. A wave of joy washed over me when I looked around at my closest friends, all gathered together for a celebration we'd planned for weeks. Life had kept us busy, and getting everyone in one place had felt almost impossible, but there we were, laughing, reminiscing, and enjoying each other's company as if no time had passed. The warmth, the laughter, the easy conversations, it was exactly what I needed. In that moment, I felt grateful for the bonds we share, and the joy of being surrounded by people who genuinely care about you filled me with a deep sense of contentment.